Bon. Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Nicole and today, live here with you with Dr. Alain Deneault. And he's written, my last count, I think, was 38 books that you have. Is that correct?
18 with a lot of translations and books on Georg Simmel, which is more scholar work, and articles.
Right. So the reason why we asked Dr. Deneault to be here today is because he has a many French videos that we've seen, and it's all about the revolution. What does revolution mean? What needs to happen? And right now we're at a time where you've heard me pushing for. Yes, it's time for a revolution. It's time for the Canadian citizens and the indigenous nations to take our rightful spot in our constitution, which was not done in 1982. And we've written a small book to explain a little bit of what we intend to do and why legally we have the right to do this. So while we are in between elections, this is when we are the most powerful, before we give away our rights for 4 years without having um, anything that we can be safe with to stop governments who are acting the way they are now from happening again. So until we decide together as citizens to actually do a real revolution, and that revolution doesn't mean we take out government or anything like that. It just means that finally the people will be in power. That's a revolution. And Dr. Deneault had the perfect example in his video of what revolution means. So I want to make sure that English Canada knew about this gentleman, and he's got a few books that were translated in English. Very important because he's been through so much, and he understands the financial aspects, also the offshores, and the books that he's written. So, for me, Monsieur Deneault is actually well worth knowing, hearing, because he has been through it all, as far as I'm concerned, and understands the needs of regular Canadian citizens. So, Monsieur Deneault, up to you.
Thank you. Well, as Germans would say, it's viel zu viel. Thank you for the introduction. Well, you invited me to talk about this notion of revolution, and I just put quite simply in French the idea that the revolution was the principle of rendre révolu something, and it's hard to translate because in rendre révolu you have the word révolu, which suits with revolution. It comes from it. Révolu in French means something that is gone, that belongs to the past. And the revolution is a process in which people make sure that something that is undesirable, painful, useless, or unfair to belong to the past. We make it something that we can recall as belonging to history, but that isn't actual anymore. So it's a way to separate the word from a romantic point of view, which is the idea that the revolution is something bloody, with weapons, arms, shouting, yelling, and a sort of a blind, passionate relationship with politics. It's not necessarily about those type of images we have in mind when we think about a revolution. Revolution is something related to a timeline, let's say. And well, what can we underline as being unfair, undesirable, would be all the political and juridic apparatus, legal apparatus, allowing multinational corporations and oligarchy to behave as sovereigns, thanks to the actual system. I mean, the actual legal, political, and financial system allow oligarchs to behave as sovereigns, being sovereign, being able to make decisions that will apply on people. They are the one who have power. I mean, and it's quite it's easy to illustrate it. For example, if Justin Trudeau has to meet with some CEO of a big multinational firm, well, he will the one who will be nervous before the appointment and not the big CEO or the president. I mean, it's obvious that the power belongs to those who control maybe the oil industry, the pharmaceutical, the industry of agriculture, the finance, and so on and so forth. So these people are committed to satisfy this elite. And so the other idea about revolution is in the meaning of making something belonging to the past, let's say, or be gone, is also related to the responsibility we have. In my understanding, there's a problem with the modernity that we Westerners have. Since the modernity means the end of the 17th century and essentially the 18th century with the revolutions, precisely, and with the creation of states having a lot to do with human responsibility and not with theology. Well, since then, we sort of, as Westerners, convince ourselves that the world belongs to us. We can do with it whatever we want. And even though we destroy it throughout the industrial process, even though we pollute the climate, water, the lands, even though we create phenomena that are like huge, global warming, the extermination of a species in a massive way, and then the transformation of the water level, and the production, let's say, of hurricanes and fire in the forest, I don't know how we should put it, and so on and so forth. We give ourselves a world in which we cannot live anymore. And what is fascinating is that the most important threat to that ideological regime we're in is that regime is itself, which is stronger than whatever we can as citizens produce as a counterpower. Because this regime we're in has the cancer. It's producing effects, a context, which is a threat to itself. Because the globalization, the financial, commercial, industrial globalization won't be able to go on for decades in a world where species disappear, where you have climate and environmental emergencies like the one we saw this summer in Western Canada. And I'm not talking about the hurricanes we see so often now in the US, which is new. With respect to meteorologists, the statistics. So what I want to figure out here is how important is the objective situation with respect to that regime. So this system is killing itself, and it is killing ourselves too, because we depend on it, and it is a threat to itself. It creates an ecological situation in which nothing can survive if we don't stop it, or if it doesn't stop itself, because it won't be able to produce what it needs to go on further. I think about these chips, for instance, that we deeply need in the industry. They are all produced in Hong Kong. Well, in Hong Kong, they cannot produce it anymore, and it generates a lot of problems in the supply chain because there's water missing in Hong Kong because of global warming. And this is just a tiny example of all what will go wrong in that system for the decades. The pandemic, the so-called pandemic we're in, or there's a debate about that word, but let's say that it's a pandemic. Well, it's related to and there's a lot of hypotheses saying that this virus we're fighting, it comes from the animals before being given to human beings. Well, if it's so easy for animals to give virus to human beings, it's because of the killing of species. So there's a lack of buffers between species, several species, and ourselves, so that these kind of epidemia occur. And Monique Robin, which is a French journalist, very interesting, is currently working on a documentary, and she wrote a book with scientists saying that the main cause of the situation we're in is ecology. It is related to ecology. And our regime, our ideological regime, which is based on exploitation of resources, extractivism, consumerism, capitalism, is responsible of that. So what I'm saying is that it's not only about citizens being aware of the problems and taking on their shoulders the necessity of transforming a structure. That is, of course, very important, but it's also being aware of the fact that the system itself is a threat to itself. It is we don't say that in English, saborder, I don't know how to say it. Il se saborde lui-même. It is ruining itself while going always further in the ideology of growth, of production, of consumption, and so on and so forth. If we take all the energy that the world used since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, half of it started in 1992. So it says how exponential is the use of energy that provide the global warming and all these phenomena that are deeply that are a concern not only for us citizens but also for the system itself. So so insurance companies, for instance, start to be aware of that, and they find it very problematic. So what I want to go to a point which is, and we can talk about Hannah Arendt to underscore it, the idea that the power is very complicated to think about today. The power is the power of the citizen. We can go on strike. We can sometimes vote. We can sometimes do what organization like yours is doing, raising awareness, trying to make things change in a structural way. So this is one aspect of politics. But the power is also the institutional power. The institutional power that makes decision, has a lot of money thanks to taxation and or to profit when you're a private organization, which is another form of power. And also, Hannah Arendt says that the power is also the objective evolution of the world itself. The world doesn't belong to us. We cannot do with the world whatever we want, because in a parliament, in a specific assembly, people will decide that things will go on that way or the other way. I mean, when Rob Ford in Ontario was elected, promising cheap oil, that was so stupid, because he doesn't have the authority, the power, even as prime minister of a big jurisdiction like Ontario, to decide if oil is available and if we can make it cheap and burn it so that we accentuate the phenomenon of global warming. It's not about that when you're interested in politics. It's about dealing with situation you don't control. And so Hannah Arendt used to talk about force, to think about that kind of power. And she used it, and I'm not doing it myself, but she used it herself in French. She was talking about la force des choses, as we put it in French. It's in her text.
Right.
In English, she used that French expression, la force des choses, par la force des choses. I don't know how we can translate that. She's not able to do it herself. So that's why she used the French expression. The idea that toward an objective process, well, things are changing and can become a threat to the regime that is the cause of these changes. I'm thinking still about ecology here. So my understanding of the future is that we'll have that this huge structure has no real future. This globalized world with big, huge countries like Canada that was meant only to exploit resources and to rob First Nations resources in order to export them to the metropoles like UK, France, and afterward the US and the global market. The idea of Canada is, that's why it's so big. It's about managing and taking advantage of huge territories. It's not a political ideal that was
it was a business.
The basis of Canada. It doesn't origin from that. It's about taking advantage of resources, and in a weak genocide, let's say the génocide long, so sort of a slow genocide to based on the indifference to well, this is, and we it's our heritage. So we have these structures now, and the idea is, does the world we're in allow us still to think on that scale, or will we have to, par la force des choses, as Hannah Arendt says, throughout objective process, will we have to think politics in more regional ways in which people that belong to a sensible territory. I'm in the Acadian Peninsula, I know what I'm talking about now, where you have 50,000 people. Well, politically elaborate a way to put together on one side talents, skills, forces, and on the other side needs, aspirations, desire, and projects. How it has to be done. It will have to be done, and it's not. I'm not talking as an activist here, but just as someone that see how the world evolves. It will be necessary to think on that scale, and the Canadian scale, which is a colonialist scale, which is an imperialistic scale, maybe won't be relevant at all because of the end of the financial world, the global market, and whatever capitalists will have foster. It won't be actual because of what the global warming and the massive extinction of species is provoking now. And we see it in Western Canada. What does the federal government really do? But nothing. Sending a few firefighters. But that's all. I mean, the Canadian government can do anything. It can vote a law for forbidding fire in forest, but it won't. It's useless.
On vous entend plus.
Je vous écoute.
Okay.
If you want to respond, I still have 15 minutes.
Yes. So the whole point is that, as Canadian citizens, with everything that is happening with our governments, what they're doing to all of the federal employees, the restaurateurs, like people, what has transpired since March of 2020 is unbelievable, based on the isolation of a virus that doesn't even qualify, even in the UK, since March 19th, 2020, as a highly dangerous infectious disease. So they took it off and unlabeled it. But then they decided to go ahead with the COVID-19 plan anyway, because it seems like such a good plan. So we've been used and abused. Our economy has fallen apart. People have died uselessly for no reason, all based on political lies, on one agenda, for the Great Reset. But now we have an opportunity. And I think Canadians, as I call us the official shareholders, co-owners of the Crown of Canada, because in the end, we give away our power to the politicians every time we vote, and therefore we're stuck for 4 years because we're not protected against decisions they may make. So there was a blunder in 1982. We can fix that. But Canadians will have to get together and look at what can we do with our environment. First of all, we have to make sure that we reacquire legally, and at the international level, we're allowed to take back all of our natural resources in a decolonization process, which was never given to us. So then, by being able to do all this, the Canadian citizens need to start learning about politics, how things work, and the way that we were looking at things under the PowerShift is that, this is a bottom-up government, and like you were saying, everything has to go by region. The people of the region have to decide for their economy what's best for them as well. So by the people being more informed, participating in their economy, what the Great Reset kind of did for us, in a roundabout way, is the difference between dictatorship and freedom is who makes the decisions at the end of the day. 37 million people or 338 politicians. So what they've done is they did something called open government. And in open government, we have to all report everything set up with every community, and then at the end of the day, Canada reports to the United States at the World Bank, under that. But we can use that to our benefit and shut it off at the national level. And then we already have our direct democracy system built in because all of our cities are equipped with it. So we'd be able to vote from our homes, from doing all of these things. And this is why in your French videos, you say so eloquently what revolution is to get rid of something that no longer works, that we no longer need, and evolve from that. And I think it's time for the citizens to no longer need representative democracy in the sense where they have final decision-making authority over us. And because really that belongs to us. And there was a coup d'etat in 1931 and again in 1982. And the UK government knows this. And right now, while we hold our power of vote, that the politicians want us to give to them, because our vote is important to them. Well, the reason why it is so important to them is because we give them all the power for 4 years. But that power they only borrow it. We don't give it away forever like they're trying to do. So we have the right to take it back, and this is the right time for it. And because of what the people don't know here is that you've discovered the Panama Papers. You've opened, and in regards to our economy, in regards to our environment, we can work together to save all this for our future generations and to be able to help the rest of the world fix this. So instead of the Great Reset that they are planning, we have an opportunity to turn this world right side up instead of upside down like they have.
Well, I agree with you on one principal thing is the project you're describing is a revolution, especially with respect to Canada. I'll talk about when you say as Canadian citizens. Well, this is a revolution in a way that Canadians are not citizens. I mean, officially, we're subjects of the Queen. We're citizens when we're in a republic. It's funny because Canada is sort of a mishmash of several influence from different systems that don't fit together. But Trudeau, the father, tried to put it together as a sort of a drawing, the funny drawing. When we think about Canadian citizenship, when we're actually subject of the Queen, when we talk about forest, for instance, we won't think about public good, but about what belongs to the Crown. So it's all mixed up. Canada is a puzzle. I mean, it doesn't work in a theoretical way. And so when you say we give the power every 4 years, it isn't constitutionally thought that way, because we never had the power. We in this country, the Canadian Dominion, which is today this monarchist parliamentary country, where it's a parliamentary monarchy. Well, we remain subjects. We never had power by any means. So the idea of elections in this context, we're not in France here. In this context, the election is always only a consultation. Yeah. Which people do you want as governors? I mean, governors that will just manage your situation, even though the public institutions don't belong to you at all. They belong to the Crown. So if there's no movement, I mean, activist movement in this country, at least to get rid of not only those symbols, but that, I mean, legal reality that when the government of New Brunswick more or less gives the forest to the Irving, it's not the forest of the public, it's the forest of the Crown. It is told that way. So the idea that we the people, as we put it, or Nous Peuple de France, if there's something alike that is the foundation of a constitution, it will be something that deserves to be called a revolution. And it's not about being rid of something, it's about gaining something we never had, because we were always in this country settlers. And this is what explains our presence here when colonized First Nations were totally robbed from what they had by colonizers. So this is the way we can put it. I to be honest, I don't have a very direct and full understanding of what this viral crisis is. I respect though the need of a debate, and what I find a pity is how the media didn't play their role in this so-called crisis, let's say, making as if science was an oracle, was a plea of God, like a revelation. Science became something unilateral, brutally consensual. Although, when we know a bit about science, we know that science is always something referred to as a debate within a scientific community. And I find it pitiful that media, CBC, Radio-Canada, the mainstream newspapers only served as the conduct of the public authorities, saying this is what you have to think because the Minister of Science, the Health Minister, put it so. And this is something pitiful, and what also is pitiful is the total lack of credibility of the governments and of the pharmaceutical. I mean, you have a government that didn't care at all about public health for decades, but not at all. They're letting pesticide being spread up everywhere. I mean, they didn't care about maybe the financial health of people that didn't have enough to eat. I mean, it's a government that don't care at all about public health since decades, and then it becomes an issue, and we should trust them. They are not in a position that we can trust them.
No.
Even though we might think that they are right. And also, the pharmaceutical are so clearly private multinational corporations that care more about the financial health of their shareholders than the public health, that they don't have, and they don't care when it's about Africans that don't have the assets to pay for vaccine. They present as being totally necessary. So you see all the contradictions in that crisis, and a lot of superstitions. If 75% of the people have double vaccine, then everything is fine. But it's a bit about like voodoo. It's like just we don't. If there's no debate, if there's no scientist that can be against that position on behalf of another point of view, another theory, another, then you see, well, it's just dogma. It's just about dogmatic point of view. And this is a pity. We're not in a situation where we can have a free and open debate on that. And since it's not the case, we can be suspicious.
Yeah, definitely. And they don't want debate. And this is what we've noticed, and we've been participating in a lot of things. And the evidence that we found is just phenomenal. I can back everything I say. And this is why I have no fear. And this is why I'm saying, well, we need a revolution now, because now's the time to get it done. If we're going to change anything and hope that our children have a future in this country, and to protect our natural resources from being manipulated and abused. And as well with the indigenous nations, we've had this right since 1960. But because the people never asked for it or never challenged it, it never got done. So we need to stop relying on politicians to be our saviors, because each and every, by law, international law, we own this country as a people. And the governance of it, the corporation, the Crown Corporation of Canada, belongs to us, not the government really, because by law, England and Canada had signed on to our rights to decolonization with the Indigenous nations, but it had to be done together, to come together united with the Indigenous nations. And then in 1982, what was so interesting was that the UK was really upset over Trudeau and what he was doing, but he threatened them with an economic war and to cause problems, because they actually accepted our Charter of Rights, and they were saying that our Charter of Rights actually took away our rights. And we've got that disclosed in our PowerShift to Freedom ebook that we're giving away for free right now to every Canadian in English and French, so that they can actually see where we need to go from here. And if we miss this opportunity, we're going to lose everything. And as far as I'm concerned, if we wait too long, the life that's going to be coming is not even going to be worth living. And we need to fight now, but fight it legally, the right way. Yes, a quiet revolution, one with intelligence, one with the law. And we have the law on our side. We just need to activate it. And that's why it's so important that we know about our natural resources, our economy, what's with the economy. How do we fix this? We've got so many things to fix. It's not even funny. But if we start with our Constitution, placing the people in power, because when you were saying that there's three methods, okay, to our Constitution, there's the United States, the UK, and Paris. So all of this is combined, and Trudeau wanted to make sure that it's a new constitution. No, it was just a charter of rights. Our constitution stayed the same. That was just added on. And to confuse things, he made it as Schedule A instead of Schedule B. So to make us think that it is it. But when we look at republics like the United States and Paris, and especially in Paris, France, the people are the sovereigns, same as the United States. However, they have no legal right because why? Representative democracy was the coup d'etat in 1922 to say, well, we're going to remove ourselves from the crown, but then the government took over. So we exchanged one dictatorship for another and then told, oh, well, now you're free.
About France, we could say the same concerning 1870. But that would be a whole presentation. I'm really sorry. I have to leave. We'll have to leave it there. But it will be a pleasure to discuss about all those issues.
Yes, and if you could come back, we'd like to do one for the French people as well. And I know that you're much more comfortable speaking in French. And as a French-speaking person, I totally adore your philosophy, and I totally connect with it. And it's common sense. And the people need to win this time, and it's a time for the people to win. So thank you so much for giving us this time. And I know your daughter had a birthday not too long ago, a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
So hope you're enjoying her, and we need to fight for our children.
Yes.
And our grandchildren.
Indeed.
So thank you, Monsieur Deneault, and you've made my day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to finish off with showing your video on La Révolution in French with the English subtitles. So people stay here, and you'll be able to understand what we understand. And the English is not that great, but the translation, but you'll see that, the revolution is now. It's time to take action. And with the right people who know about the corruption, we can get through this. So, merci beaucoup.
To specify that this video was made with prisoners of Bordeaux in Montreal.
Bordeaux, Montreal, okay.
Thank you.
But it was really good. Thank you.
Thanks. All the best.
Okay. So now I'm going to do a share screen. Okay. CC. Auto translate English. There we go. It's only 11 minutes, people, so please have patience. And then you'll get to understand what this man was trying to say. And everything is affected. We're losing natural resources. We're losing wildlife like there's no tomorrow. Why? Because it's being exploited by the big corporations. And that's what the message that he was trying to get at, that yes, we have to watch our natural, save our country, save our natural resources, and stop these big conglomerates from stealing and ending the lives of animals that are now going to be extinct. So everything he says is true once you understand exactly where he's coming from. So now we'll go to this video.
Des gens puissants, destructeurs, ont spolié un peuple. Ils ont volé un peuple en allant chercher des minerais, par exemple de l'or, du cuivre, des diamants, je ne sais pas, en payant pas d'impôts, en polluant, ce qu'on pourrait dire en rudoyant la veuve et l'orphelin, là, en étant vraiment, en se comportant d'une manière dommageable pour les gens. C'est un cas. Et là, dans le cas, on se rend compte qu'en droit, c'était légal. Ils avaient le droit. Ils avaient le droit en vertu de la façon dont la loi est écrite. Et ce qu'on essaie de montrer aux futurs avocats, c'est à accepter ça. À accepter que la loi aille à l'encontre de la morale. Et que la loi soit seulement une technique qui soit pensée par et pour les puissants. Et ça, moi, je trouve ça sidérant. Et très souvent, vous avez comme Philippe Couillard qui a un compte à l'île Jersey, qui est le premier ministre du Québec. Il a eu un compte à l'île Jersey. Qu'est-ce qu'il a dit? Il a dit c'est légal. La société totale a fait travailler des enfants de force au Myanmar via des partenaires, ainsi de suite, pour construire ses propres infrastructures. Qu'est-ce qu'elle a dit? C'était légal. C'est toujours légal. On envoie des capitaux dans les paradis fiscaux, c'est légal. On fait travailler des enfants, c'est légal. On finance des dictatures, c'est légal. On envoie des armes à des factions qui veulent prendre le pouvoir sur un mode violent pour donner accès ensuite à l'entreprise, à des gisements. On va dire c'est légal. On a tout légalisé. On a légalisé ce qui nous choque du point de vue de la morale. Et ce divorce-là entre la morale et la loi est quelque chose qui devrait effectivement nous révolter.
Donc, qu'est-ce que vous êtes en train de me dire? Il va y avoir aucune justice qui va se faire.
Qui écrit la loi?
Les politiciens.
Bon, il faut les changer.
Puis comment on pourrait faire pour les changer?
Une révolution.
Et comment faire cette révolution?
On s'organise.
Mais de quelle manière?
Une révolution, c'est deux choses. Une révolution, c'est deux choses. C'est un contexte historique dans lequel les gens sentent que ça va pas. On est à deux doigts de ça. Aujourd'hui, on est à deux doigts de ça. Là. On sent là, que ça n'a pas de sens. Et à un moment donné, il va y avoir des pénuries parce que quand il va y avoir une crise pétrolière, là, il n'y aura plus des sacs de pain à perte de vue dans les supermarchés. Là. Il n'y aura peut-être même plus de bière dans les dépanneurs pendant quelques jours. Là, ça va aller mal. Parce qu'on ne pourra plus s'approvisionner. Il va y avoir une crise. Et à un moment donné, il va y avoir une crise de confiance. On va se dire, ce système-là ne fonctionne pas. Et quand ça ne fonctionne pas, on prête l'oreille à autre chose. Et là, il y aura sûrement des modèles d'un genre nouveau qui va porter plus sur l'économie au sens de l'épargne, être économe, gaspiller moins, le recyclage, l'entraide, le partage, la socialisation, la mise en commun. Et on va apprendre à être moins individualiste et à mettre en commun ce qu'on a si on évite les fascistes. Si on évite les tarés là, qui vont dire non, ce qui reste, je le garde pour moi, puis les autres, c'est mes ennemis. Mais si on arrive à développer ce genre de conscience, on avancera. Moi, je me bats comme un désespéré pour qu'on quitte le modèle individualiste, qu'on abandonne l'idée qu'on est juste des individus et qu'on revienne à une idée du partage de l'entraide. Parce que si on ne réapprend pas à s'entraider, si on ne réapprend pas même à s'aimer, ça peut sembler fleur bleue, mais juste à s'aimer comme semblable, comme sœur et comme frère. Là. C'est à sentir on est de la même gang, puis on est dans la même aventure, puis on a intérêt à s'aider, parce que si on ne s'aide pas, ça va être long. C'est juste revenir à ces considérations-là. Si on y revient, ça ira mieux. Si on continue comme on est parti là, c'est-à-dire à se morceler et à être toujours au service des plus puissants que nous, pour un petit salaire, pour un petit avantage, pour un petit machin, eh ben, on n'ira nulle part. Et on va s'en rendre compte. Le jour où, pour le type de Longueuil, de Gatineau, de Repentigny ou de Laval, il va en coûter plus cher de mettre de l'essence dans sa voiture que ce que lui rapporte sa journée de travail. Ce jour-là, il va commencer à se dire, mais je suis vraiment un nigo, moi. J'ai acheté une voiture pour aller travailler, puis quand je vais mettre de l'essence dedans, ça me coûte ma paye. Mais ça marche pas. Et on est à deux doigts de vivre ça, là. Et quand ça marchera pas, puis tout le monde va se rendre compte que ça marche pas, puis qu'il n'y a plus rien qui fonctionne, puis on le voit dans certaines régions aux États-Unis où l'État a complètement abandonné des populations entières. Ben là, on va se dire, on va essayer autre chose.
Vous parlez de révolution, mais je pense que dans ce pays, il manque d'union. Donc, comment on va faire pour se réunir pour faire une révolution? Combien de temps ça va prendre?
Ça, c'est effectivement la question. Vraiment. Combien de temps ça va prendre? Ce qui peut faire la différence, c'est le contexte. Aujourd'hui, les gens ont des préjugés. Lui, c'est un criminel. Elle porte le voile. Je sais pas trop qu'est-ce qu'elle pense. Lui est noir. Je sais pas, je me méfie de ces gens-là, des préjugés. Hein. Bon, l'autre, je sais pas, puis ça peut être envers les riches aussi. Hein. L'autre, il porte une cravate, ça doit être un crétin. Tu sais, on est bon. Et on peut se permettre les préjugés quand, en descendant la rue comme ça, on fait ses courses, on a toujours un peu d'argent, on revient avec ce qu'on veut et on vit comme un individu parce que le système nous permet de rester des individus. Mais quand est-ce qu'on va parler à l'autre, là, dont on se méfie parce que lui, il a fait de la prison, puis lui, il porte une cravate, puis elle est noire, puis l'autre, elle a un voile? C'est quand on va avoir besoin de se parler. À un moment donné, on va se dire, je suis dans le besoin. Parce que là, il me manque quelque chose. Et le système qui me le fournissait ne me le fournit plus. Parce qu'il y a une crise pétrolière, parce qu'il y a une crise de confiance, parce qu'il y a une crise de classe, parce qu'il y a une crise écologique. Et là, on va aller cogner chez celui qu'on méprisait la veille. Là. Puis on va voir qu'il n'est pas si méchant, au fond. Puis il y a des talents qu'on n'a pas, puis on peut se compléter, puis on peut apporter. Et c'est là qu'il va y avoir un bris dans les espèces de corridors individualistes dans lesquels on nous a mis. Puis on va faire une révolution, pas nécessairement au sens romantique, avec des bannières rouges, là, puis des slogans. La révolution, au sens strict, ça veut dire rendre révolu. Ça veut dire reléguer au passé ce qui nous nuit. Faire de ce qui nous nuit des souvenirs. En faire classer des dossiers, quoi. Dire la bourse, les multinationales, le capitalisme, les partis politiques pourris là, qu'on a eu au pouvoir pendant des décennies, on les rend révolus. Là. On les envoie dans les poubelles de l'histoire, on les envoie dans les manuels d'histoire, on les envoie dans nos souvenirs, dans nos albums de photos, et on essaie autre chose. Et on a vu que dans tel pays d'Amérique latine, ben, il y a eu une constituante, puis là, les peuples se sont mis à réécrire les règles du jeu pour vivre en société sur un mode plus égalitaire. Puis qu'à Saint-Camille, au Québec, il y a une communauté qui a appris à vivre sur un mode égalitaire. Puis les féministes arrivent avec un discours qui peut nous éclairer sur des rapports hommes-femmes beaucoup plus sereins. Puis pendant ce temps-là, il y a un discours sur la République, qui est un discours conceptuel, là, qui consiste à penser la façon dont on se donne des règles, même quand on n'est pas pareil. Et là, on va avoir envie de ça, parce qu'il va y avoir un vide, parce qu'il va y avoir une crise, parce qu'il va y avoir du manque. Et là, les relations sont toujours liées à un contexte. Si on est dans un contexte de guerre, vous et moi, on n'a pas la même relation. Si on est dans un contexte d'abondance, on n'a pas la même relation non plus. Si on est dans un contexte de guerre civile, on n'a pas la même relation. Et quand il va y avoir une relation, un contexte de crise, les relations vont changer. Et moi, d'une certaine façon, j'ai hâte. J'ai hâte que ça pète. J'ai hâte que tout s'écroule. On l'a vu, je ne sais pas si ça vous dit quelque chose, la crise du verglas en 1998.
Oui.
Ben c'est ça qui s'est passé. La crise du verglas, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Ben là, tout d'un coup, on a besoin du voisin. Puis on s'inquiète de la voisine parce que la vieille dame qu'on méprise parce que elle râle tout le temps, puis on la regarde de haut, ben on s'inquiète d'elle. Parce qu'il y a la crise du verglas, elle n'a pas d'électricité. Là. On va cogner à sa porte pour voir si elle est correcte. On va peut-être lui apporter de l'eau. On va peut-être lui apporter... Bon, et c'est là, c'est quand il y a... On est trop bien matériellement. Et on est trop aliéné. On est trop tourné vers nous-mêmes. Et avec la publicité, Facebook, la consommation, et le jour où toutes les digues vont éclater, les verrous vont sauter, là, on va réapprendre à se parler, on va développer des nouveaux modèles. Et le capitalisme a toujours cherché à briser ces modèles-là. Qu'est-ce que fait le capitalisme quand il va au Sénégal? Qu'est-ce qu'il fait le capitalisme quand il va en République dominicaine, au Brésil ou en Indonésie? Il brise les relations sociales, il crée des individus parce que c'est comme ça qu'on a des consommateurs. Parce que quand on brise les relations sociales et qu'on a des individus, on a des gens qui sont dépendants. Et là, on peut leur vendre des trucs, puis on peut s'imposer comme intermédiaire, puis vendre des services. Alors que quand les gens s'entraident, ils n'ont pas besoin d'autant d'entreprises. Gertrude va te couper les cheveux parce qu'elle sait comment, puis Anita va réparer ton moteur parce qu'elle sait comment, puis Mohamed, lui, il va te donner des cours de musique parce qu'il sait comment, puis Rodrigue, puis Stéphanie, puis Jean. Non, ensemble, on sait qui a des talents, puis on s'entraide dans l'amitié. Puis avec peut-être une codification qui va être une petite monnaie qui va juste circuler sans que nécessairement quelqu'un s'enrichisse. Puis on a un modèle sur ce territoire-là, c'est les Premières Nations. L'économie des Premières Nations était une économie de partage. Et dans les Premières Nations, personne n'est un propriétaire foncier, personne détient une terre. C'est la terre qui nous détient. On lui appartient, la terre ne nous appartient pas. Et on a toute une autre pensée dont on aurait pu s'inspirer. Et je pense que ça va revenir quand on va commencer à manquer de poissons, manquer d'eau, manquer de pain et manquer de tout. C'est un plaisir.
Lorsqu'on attend 40 minutes pour un autobus à moins 20 degrés Celsius, c'est à cause des paradis fiscaux.
Lorsqu'un hôpital met 1 an et demi à procéder à une intervention chirurgicale,
c'est à cause des paradis fiscaux.
Pourtant cruciale,
c'est à cause des paradis fiscaux.
Lorsque ferme un centre d'aide aux toxicomanes,
c'est toujours à cause des paradis fiscaux.
Lorsque s'effondre un viaduc faute d'entretien,
c'est à cause des paradis fiscaux.
Lorsqu'une commission scolaire abolit son programme pour les élèves en difficulté,
c'est à cause des paradis fiscaux, man.
Lorsqu'une compagnie de danse se voit incapable de rétribuer ses artistes,
je pense que c'est à cause des paradis fiscaux.
Pour leur répétition,
c'est à cause des paradis fiscaux.
Lorsqu'une télévision d'État supprime son service d'information internationale,
oh, toi et moi, là, je pense que c'est à cause des paradis fiscaux.
Okay, so I'm back. So I know that it's not very easy to watch the translation there or to understand it, but the bottom line is that um, the how can I say, what he was trying to say is that we need to get along, we need to start communicating, and that's what they removed from us. They're removing all of our powers. And he made this video in 2017. And what he was saying is we need to start listening to each other. We need to start sharing with each other. And this is what the Indigenous nations used to do. It was a collective, and everything was shared. And in Canada, according to what international law on the rights of decolonization and being able to take back the power over our natural resources, that's all legal, people. And it's time for us, as the official shareholders, co-owners of the Crown of Canada, it's not written anywhere other than within this law saying that the collective decide. And then even in our governance, a lot of the Supreme Court judgments will say it's like with Quebec when they want to separate. Any provinces who try to separate can't. Why? Because all Canadians and then the Indigenous peoples on their side as well need to decide that. It's up to us to make that decision, not the government. And this has been known, but the government doesn't want you to know that. They'll say, well, our parliamentary system, that we represent the people. So really, Parliament is stronger than the federal government. The federal government does have what we call prerogative power, which they get to make the final decisions, but that belongs to us, and that's what they stole in 1982 and even in 1931. But we're not going to go that far. We're going to stick to 1982 because since then we have a solution. If you go and download our free ebook, The PowerShift to Freedom, in French or in English, you'll be able to understand where we're getting at. If the people do not stand up in protest of demanding to be recognized as the true shareholders of the Crown Corporation of Canada, we will lose everything. So it's up to us. Right now, we have more power right now before the elections. We can force a postponement of the elections until we have our names on that Constitution, because all they did in the Constitution was make sure that our collective rights were not recognized on there, and that is not right. We can enforce that and be the final decision makers for our country, and this will, what happened with SARS, CoV-2, since March 2020, not even being a highly infectious disease in the sense that great mortality rates are going to happen, and then with the PCR test being all null and void as far as I'm concerned, because they cannot identify a virus at 35 to 45 CT thresholds. That makes them all useless. So we need to stand with this truth. We need to fight and prove this, but stand together and start communicating. And in his video, Alain was right. We're too judgmental. We're all self-centered and judgmental because we think of us and not of ourselves with the community. And we need to start thinking about us within the community, as a community, because it's what's going to save us. It's our collective rights, our collective thinking, and getting to, instead of pointing fingers like I've seen here on Facebook, it's sickening. The people are judgmental. And right away, instead of waiting to listen to what somebody has to say, or know where they're coming from, everybody judges. So is this the type of people you want to help run this country? I'd say no. Absolutely not. Because until we start to be more compassionate, we can't run this country. We're going to end up in a civil war one way or another. So we need to start putting our issues aside and looking at what's best for this country and our children. And that's what we need to focus on. Not what I think, oh, well, because you don't think that way, you can go straight to hell because I think this way. Well, we need to have a discussion on why that person thinks that way. And then there's something called, making, how can I say, the indigenous nations, what they practiced a lot was they had a third party, and then they'd be able to come together and have a consensus on something. So we need to start having consensus. We need to start to be more compassionate. We need to start looking at what's wrong in our system and eventually change that. We don't need to change it all now. What we need to change is who has the power, and we need to stop these injections because they are not good. More people, we have proof that more people have died from the injections now with the UK research that they've done. 200 and some people have died. Guaranteed it wasn't of COVID, because COVID is anything that falls out of the sky. And then with the PCR tests, they're not valid anyways. So what did they die of? Heart attacks, accidents, whatever. So, but they had 400 people die who were vaccinated. That they knew. Okay. So we need to stand firm and stand together and do what's right. We're at that stage. So you need to stop talking and to start reacting. And we can't do it for you. We need to go door to door. We need to warn people. We need to bring out the facts. We've got them all listed, and it's up to the people to be able to print those out and do your job. You all have a responsibility. Each and every single one of us has a responsibility to this country and to the children of this country and to the elders of this country who were left alone for what? For a trial, for Event 201, because now we can prove that it was just a trial run, because the UK said, well, it's not that bad. So, and we got the proof with the isolation. So, it's not that bad. It's just a mild cold, like we've always had. But let's go ahead and do this anyway. Now, how stupid is that? They've done this in every country, and then not one country has SARS-CoV-2 listed. Not because they're saying it wasn't isolated. It was isolated, but then the proof was in the pudding. Okay, no sense in claiming anything for SARS-CoV-2, but they did it anyway. And we bought it, and we complied, and now's the time to stop complying. Now's the time to say, hey, the elections can wait. We want to see our names as the final decision makers in this country, along with the indigenous nations, because that's how it has to be. So we come together, we unite, and we stand strong. Okay, so I'm going to let you go with that, and please go to the PowerShift.ca, and you can download the ebook in French or English. It's free. We were giving it away, like giving it with a donation before, to help pay for our fees, to maintain this, to try and get lawyers. But now we're at a point where we are running out of time. You need to look at this ebook. It's also interactive. It's got videos in there, but it's just short enough and it's got enough pictures to show you this is what we're looking at. And because they're saying that we have to learn to live with COVID from now on. So what does that mean? Any sniffles, anything you have, any allergies you have, you're going to be locked into your house. So pick and choose what you want, your freedom or a dictatorship. What you do with your actions will tell everything. Well, either if win or lose will depend on the Canadian people. Okay, win or lose. So either we all stand together and say it's enough. We're going ahead with this revolution where it is finally the people throughout, for the first time in history, even Switzerland doesn't have complete direct democracy. We would. Okay, and we can show the rest of the world, because they too can use the same laws as we did. There's 17 altogether. We're 17 countries still tied to the UK. We can knock all of that down, but it needs the Canadian citizens to launch it, because we are the ones who launched the New World Order since 1970. So we need to clean up our act. Okay, so I'll leave you with that. Go to the PowerShift.ca. Thank you. The revolution is in your hands.